Okay, great. You're live. Welcome to the Soul Infused Monday show. Welcome, welcome. And I know it always takes a moment, Karen, so let's see when people jump in. And,
yeah, no problem.
And super excited that you're here today. And today I have a special guest. And that is my dear friend and colleague, Karen Kenny. Karen, say hello.
Hi, guys. I'm wicked excited to be here. I always love to get to hang out with Sonia, so this is great fun for me.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really great. And we have a great topic here today. And if you're new to my show or if you're new to me, my name is Sonia Bueno de la Torre, and I'm here to help you to know and love your authentic self so that you can live what you really want. And today our topic is, what's the ultimate key to self-love and happiness? And that's, of course, a big topic, but I truly believe that self-love is the foundation to inner and outer peace. And we both love to talk about self-love. So Karen, why don't you just share a little bit briefly about you for those who don't know you?
Okay, awesome. Thanks. Hi, guys. So my name is Karen Kenny. I live over here in, I'm originally from Massachusetts. I live in New Hampshire now. Spent some years in California and Los Angeles before I came to New Hampshire. So I've just like done the two coast things. And I am a spiritual mentor, a spiritual coach. I am a writer and a speaker and a storyteller. And so that's pretty much what I do in the world. I'm also a long time vegan. I'm an animal activist and a lover of animals. And I'm married to my sweetie, my husband, Chris Lester, who's a professional musician. That's pretty much the Cliff Notes version of what I do.
Yeah. Karen is a vegan, and I just told her that I just spilled bone broth all over me. And like, that's great. Great.
I don't judge.
Neither do I, but that's what I'm saying. So let's talk a little bit about self-love. And my people hear me talk about this a lot.
Yes.
So I would love to hear from you, like, what does self-love mean to you?
Well, I think it's interesting. I think what we think of as self-love and what I really think self-love is actually a little bit different. I think that when we talk about, first of all, we have to start with the word self, like what we identify as the self, and then also what we have come to think of as love here, right? So love is sold to us through, movies and books and Hollywood and what we think love really is. And so there's like human love, there's like the human version of love. And then to me, there's like the divine love, which is the love that I'm going for. Like, that's what I think about when I think about self-love. So when people, are talking about loving their self, where a lot of the problems come in. So I'm just going to dive in, if that's okay. So to me, where it gets complicated and why people struggle so much with loving themselves is because the self that they're identifying with is basically the stories that they tell themselves about themselves. It's not their true self that they're actually trying to love. They're trying to reconciliate and find forgiveness and make peace based on the what's of themselves. So they know what their stories are and they know what they've done, right? They basically keep a running tally. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we both are so connected as well, because it's not that illusion of the Hollywood movie love or I should love every little story about myself, is to really connect to a higher self, the essence of that makes you love yourself. Yeah.
Yes, the true self. And I think what good spiritual practices are designed to do is to move beyond the stories, to move beyond the illusion or the Maya or the dream or whatever you want to call it, and really get down to the nitty-gritty about who you really are. And so what I think people are trying to do is to love themselves, but it's like the small s, and that's the one with all the stories, that's the one with the history, and that's the one who's keeping a tally of all the times they blew it, all the times they screwed up, all the times they were unkind or impatient or whatever. And so they've kind of started to identify with their past and their humanity. And when I talk about self-love, that capital S self, the true self, which I identify as whether you call it child of God or spirit or your highest self or your goodness, I don't care what you call it. right? But
Yeah.
for me, it's like, yeah, so it's more like more really interested in who people are, and which to me is an extension of divine love. They are an extension of the divine itself, right? But a lot of people are identifying as the self, like I'm this body with the blonde hair and I live in New Hampshire, and this person in this body has done these things. So we kind of get lost in the what, and we don't self-identify with the who. And who we really are simply is love. That's it. That's our identity. And if we saw ourselves that way, you know, if we were, I always say to people, if you change your story, you will change your life. And so if we're willing to let go of these ideas and concepts of the self in the first place, miracles are possible.
So let me ask you, Karen, I totally agree with you, right? And I hear already people behind the computer say, yeah, that sounds all great, but how do you do that? Like, how do I connect with my authentic self? I obviously know, and I teach that. And at the same time, I want them to hear it from, you know, someone else as well. And it's like, can you give them a little bit of, you know, an idea or a first step? It's like, oh, sounds great. I want to connect more with my authentic self. I do want to love myself more. Yeah. Like, how would you help them get there?
Well, one of the first things I would...
And sorry that I interrupt, Karen. Not so much. It's not so much about all the tools and the strategies, but if there's something, you know, right here, right now that you can give them, because I can, but to give them something that they can connect to their authentic self just a little bit more today.
Yeah, well, I would say the very first thing they can do is to make a conscious choice to be willing to see themselves differently. Like, that's a huge one. It's like we talk all about wanting to connect with our highest self, with our goodness, with God, with source, whatever. But so here's what I find about change, okay? People say they want to change, but what they really want to do is keep doing the same thing and then magically get a different result.
Exactly.
So it's like, okay, it really, for me, starts with a willingness to see themselves through a holy lens, a different lens, a clean lens. Call it putting on your love glasses. I don't care what you call it, but it's like a willingness to let go of who they think they are.
Yeah.
And being willing to, again, let go of their story so that it can be rewritten through a divine perspective. But we're very attached to our identities of who we are in the world.
You're super, super attached. And I think, you know, I love what you just said, Karen, because, I mean, I say this oftentimes too. It's about doing the inner work. So an inner work works. And yet you have to do the work, because it's not going to just magically change. And it takes so much. I mean, you know, I'm very transparent, and I know you are too. It's not something that happens overnight. It's not always bubbles and roses. And it's like, it's hard work sometimes. It's like peeling off those layers that keep us from actually connecting to that divine being that we are. And the lenses are really, that's the stuff. And it takes time. And it's not just reading a book and so the willingness and making a decision to really
100%.
That's the number one key. So I'm so happy you said that. I keep saying that. So listen.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's like, it's a daily practice. It's not something that we do occasionally. It's like really showing up each day, determined and disciplined, right? I always say this, a discipline that leads to the freedom ultimately. But you have to put it into practice. We can't just theorize these things, right? So people are like, oh, you know, people want results now. We live in a world, right, where everything is like instant. Like we just want everything right now. And the reality of it is like we need to put in the time, whether it's through meditation, prayer, whatever allows you. You know, A Course in Miracles says that, you know, the voice for God, and call that the voice of your true self, right? Love, whatever you want to call it. The voice for God comes to the quiet mind. So first of all, it's like allowing ourselves to sit our asses down and get quiet enough to actually hear beyond the chatter of the ego mind that is so loud and busy. And the clarification, one of the things I want to say is we often think one of the things that I think gets spiritual practice, or how people think about them where they get it a little wrong, is they think, if I do these spiritual practices, then it's like, oh, I get the reward for being a good girl or a good boy. Then I get to connect to spirit, source, God, love. But it's like, no. You already are always, always, connected to your source. You already are the thing that you think you're trying to become, right? You're already connected. Spiritual practices remove the veils. Spiritual practices cleans the lenses, right? So it's not about doing to become a thing. It's actually about undoing what you aren't, so the real you that's already there can be revealed.
Yeah, and I remember when we spoke last time, we mentioned that, you know, that including myself, I did that many times in the past. We said, oh, once I have this, I will be happy. Or when I
right.
Happy. So it could be when I lose the weight, or when I find a husband, or when I have more money, or whatever it is. And there's nothing wrong with aspiring to expand and to grow and to become and have more, or what you want to call it. However, often it's until then you're not going to be happy. Until then it's the suffering. It's really about in the moment who you are right here, right now. You are divine. You are that essence. You are God, soul, love, whatever you want to call it. Yes. And I just wanted to emphasize that because what you just said is so important.
So sorry, go ahead.
Yes, doing the work to becoming that, and at the same time to acknowledge and honor who you are in this very morning and moment, and love that yourself in that very moment. So, yeah,
right. So yeah, so basically 100% agree. And it's like we withhold love from ourselves because we don't deem ourselves worthy of it yet. And that's because we're focusing on, again, all these stories that we've told ourselves about ourselves. And so it's like, if we could just suspend disbelief about who we think we really are for a moment, right? And just say like, okay, I am not this body. I am not the amount of money that I have. I am not the weight that I'm at. I'm not my worth is not relied upon by who loves me. If I'm in a relationship, if I have this many clients, I live in this particular place. All of that stuff is like stuff that comes with being here in the world in a body. That's the humanity of this work. But beyond time and space, beyond all of the things, the hustling and the bustling and the doing of this world, there lies an unchangeable part of you. That's the self I'm talking about. And I always say this, who you are as a child of God right now is perfect, is amazing, beautiful. However, your personality could maybe use a little work. Your choices could maybe use a little work. Your ego could use a little help. But who you really are, like that is unchangeable. And it's already beautiful and divine and amazing. And we have to look at who we're choosing as our teacher in the world, ego or spirit, that is how, because whatever teacher we choose, whatever thought system we choose, love or fear, is how we're going to show up in the world. And we operate from such a place of fear. And then we behave in ways that actually are not reflecting who we really are. And that's who we start to identify as the self. But we forget that there's that pure essence, that pure light within us.
Exactly. And you know, I love what you said. And I'm going to open it up for any questions if you have for Karen or myself or for both of us. That often we have also that perception, illusion or story that, okay, to accept, I kind of want to accept myself now, but I don't want this. Like maybe it's pain, maybe it's physical pain, maybe it's emotional pain, maybe you're struggling with something right now. And I'm not saying it's easy. I know it's not easy because I walk my talk. Like I'm not, and so do you, Karen. But it's really finding a place of that who you are as an essence, even if you only have it as a thought to begin with, while you are in this pain, while you are in physical, emotional distress, and not waiting until it's gone to be good. It's the same. Once I get rid of this, then I will be fine. No, you want to find that place right now, right here, in the discomfort. And breathing through it and allowing yourself and the willingness to embrace that as well. And through doing that, opening up to love and to choose love. But it's not once to get rid of it first. I just wanted to share that. I feel that, it's a lot of people struggle with that as well. And I want you, if you are like, if you have, and while I check that, Karen, just give us some more wisdom.
Oh, I'm sorry, you froze for a second. Can you repeat the question?
Yes, well, I didn't have a question yet.
Oh.
I said, while I check the questions,
oh.
you just share some wisdom with us.
Yeah, all right. So I think that I just want to share something from A Course in Miracles that I found like so incredibly helpful. And I'm just going to read a little section of it. And it's from lesson 189. And for those of you who don't know, A Course in Miracles is a book, right? So this is the book. And this book has been a game changer in my life. I've been a student of it for like over 26 years. And so there's 365 daily lessons, or you could call them meditations. And lesson 189 says this: I feel the love of God within me now. Now, not when I feel the love of God within me now. And just listen to this. It's two little short paragraphs. It says, there is a light in you that the world cannot perceive. And with its eyes, you will not see this light, for you are blinded by the world. And that's what we do. We get blinded by the world in our stories and stuff like that. It says, yet you have the eyes to see it. It is there for you to look upon. It was not placed in you to be kept hidden from your sight. This light is a reflection of the thought that we're going to practice now. To feel the love of God within you is to see the world anew, which also means to see yourself anew, shining in innocence, alive with hope, and blessed with perfect charity and love. And then this is it. This is the directive. This is the instruction right here, really quick. Simply do this, it says. Be still. Number one, sit your ass down and get quiet. Be still. And lay aside all thoughts of what you are and what God is. All the concepts you've learned about the world, all images you hold about yourself. Empty your mind of everything it thinks is either true or false, good or bad, of every thought it judges worthy, and all the ideas of which it is ashamed. Hold on to nothing. Do not bring with you one thought the past has taught, nor one belief you ever learned before from anything. Forget this world, forget this course, and come wholly empty-handed unto your God. And what that's saying is like, come wholly empty-handed, come wholly empty-minded. Be willing to release the thoughts of who you think you are. And it's when we do that, we can then see and receive the true self, which is the innocent self, which is the self that is love.
You know what I love about this? Thank you for sharing that. Is sometimes I have that image of, imagine right here, right now that you're watching that. No matter what you just thought a second ago, no matter what you just struggled with a second ago, no matter what you think will happen in a minute later, imagine yourself like a blank piece of paper right now. It's like you just kind of really, you put it all away, and you have this moment right here, right now, this second, that you can make a different choice, that you can choose to look at yourself from that blank, even if it's only for a few seconds.
Yes.
And then you get to do the work. So I love that. And I do have one question. I think with what we shared by now, I think there's a lot of advice already given. So Alyssa is saying that her ego and her voice is storytelling. And I know Alyssa, we worked with her, so I'm happy to see you here, Alyssa. That the more she sees the divine, the stronger they get. And she blames herself because she's been making the choice daily, and it seems so unbearable. And she also struggles with some physical issues. It's very scary in human form. Yeah, and we understand that. And the spiritual battle. Any advice?
So can you say the part again about seeing the divine? What did she say? It's scary when she sees the divine? Is that what she's saying? She's
saying my ego is getting stronger the more I see the divine.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Well, I always say, the ego is hell-bent on keeping you, A Course in Miracles says we think we have a lot of different problems, but we really only have one problem that we're all dealing with, and that is that we believe we're separate from God. So as soon as you start to remove the blocks and the barriers that we have built, right, against our own awareness of connection and oneness and love with the divine, As soon as we start to get stronger in that area, the ego feels very threatened. So it will double down. It will double down and try to keep you in a place of smallness, separation, stuckness, scarcity, scared, being afraid and fearful. And so our job is to, I always say, if you think of the ego rather as a threat, rather than see it as a threat, you think of it as kind of silly. And you kind of just see it as like, oh, it's like blustering over there. It's getting freaked out because it's like, oh my God, she's starting to awaken to the true self. I will no longer be necessary. The ego literally feels it as a death threat. And so we just don't pay it. We just don't make it that real. And we just don't make it that big of a deal. You know, and the way that we give the ego power is we believe it and we believe that it's real. And it's really just like a protective mechanism. It's just doing this dance over here, thinking it's protecting you. And so I always just say, just don't make it that big of a deal. Don't take it that seriously. It's going to huff and puff in the corner, you know, it's going to do all these things, but keep your mind aligned with love. You know, Course in Miracles says you are the light of the world and darkness cannot exist in the light. So if we just stay in the light in our mind, then we don't have to worry about the little ego in the corner stomping its feet and having a tantrum.
Yeah, and I love that. And I wanted to add something to it because it's so powerful what you're just sharing. And from that battle, that inner battle, and it's so true. Like I've been on the path for 20 years. I'm transitioning right now to my next level of consciousness, self-love, and freedom. And I've accomplished so much already. And all that old stuff is coming up.
Yes.
Like, the more you get there, and it's number one to Alyssa and everyone who's here. Be loving and kind in the process. Be loving and kind in the process. And
yes,
instead of only judging it as seeing it as something bad, see it as you are doing enough right now that wants you to go somewhere else, that this is really pounding in you. Like, and everybody has their own patterns. For me, it's like whatever old stuff that is coming up.
Yes.
And you choose love in every moment that you can. And often, like I walk around, for example, you know, like when I have a day that I'm massively overeating and I know I'm not hungry, I don't fight it anymore. I don't judge myself anymore. And I choose to love myself in that moment because I know it comes from a self-protection mechanism.
Yes.
It's a flawed logic. It's a flawed logic, but whatever is coming up that you seem is fighting against you, it's ultimately here to protect you, even though it's a flawed logic. It's not protecting you anymore, but it's to see it really with love and kindness as much as you can, and to be patient and just keep going.
100%. If it's bubbling up, so whether you're saying I'm having these habits or these patterns of whether it's eating or whatever I'm doing, self-sabotage, right? As those things are coming up, and as she's saying is like, oh, my ego feels like it's getting stronger. It's like, you know, I always say, whatever is bubbling up, whatever is arising, it's simply arising for healing. So if something needs to be healed, we're not going to scream at it and judge it and say bad and, you know, it's like, no, I mean, allow it to come up and to be purified by your love and by your light. So we say, oh, I always say meet things, especially yourself, with curiosity instead of judgment. Like, oh, this is so interesting that I'm pounding this bag of chips right now. Like, what's that about? Because if we're willing to take a fearless look, right, really an honest look at what's going on, we'll find that really it's usually just some part of that little kid in us who needs to be heard or needs to be held or needs to be comforted or needs to know it's safe. And so, you know, in A Course in Miracles, we say people are either showing love, they're extending love, or they're crying out for love. They're crying out for help. So even within ourselves, when those behaviors or those thought patterns come up, that, you know, that's not the time for us to attack and judge, right? That's the time for compassion and understanding. And also sometimes knowing that the most loving thing we can say is no. Sometimes the most loving thing is put the chips away, put down, right? Hang up the phone. Don't call your ex. Don't write that post right now on Facebook, right? It's like, it's this balance of compassion, but also, so what I always say, like the bhakti, lots of love, but man, Shakti sometimes when it's necessary.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, so true. And, you know, we're going to close this up in a second. And then if nothing else, just give yourself a hug. I can tell you how often in the morning before I even get out of bed, I kind of just love myself, hug myself, you know, whatever the inner child needs to hear. It's like, hey, and finding a few things that you're grateful for. Simple things like that consistently will support the process. So anyway, Karen, it was so great having you. We could always speak for hours. And it's not the last time that we're going to do something together. So thank you again. And if you have a question for Karen, for me, and you're watching the replay, don't hesitate. Leave a comment below. We come back. We'll respond to anything you're leaving here. And thank you so much for you guys being here today. I hope you enjoyed it. And tune in for a moment. And tune in, what was the most valuable thing you're getting out of this conversation today? What's the most valuable thing you're getting out of this? And leave us a comment below. So therefore we know what's landing for you and we want to make a difference for you. So before we jump off, Karen, any last words that you want to say?
Yeah, I would just say be kind, be kind, be kind. Like that's the work, you know, being the willingness to let go of your stories, be willing to see yourself anew as who you truly are, and just be kind to yourself, to all beings as you, wherever you go, just be a blessing, right? But to yourself first and foremost. So like Sonia was saying, those little hugs in the morning, whatever it is, but just do your best to let go of all false ideas of yourself and let yourself come to know the true self. And we start by just being curious and being kind.
Love it. Be kind, be curious. And again, if you have a question, leave a comment below and share with us your most valuable takeaway. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
And I'll see you next Monday for a new episode of Soul Infused Monday. Bye, guys. Bye.